So, welcome to another episode of the Trailblazers Experience Podcast, where we have candid conversations with women sharing their amazing careers. My next guest is Mareile,
Yeah.
founder CEO of Humii, a tech platform which focuses on customer experience tracking for high-performing retail. She has an extensive career in the retail digital. Welcome to the podcast. Hello.
Hello. Thanks so much, Ntola, for having me. My pleasure. Yeah, to be on your podcast from a different continent.
Exactly, all the way from Australia. I mean, I'm so envious because I would do anything to be in the sun. So I think there's a trip coming where I need to come and visit you and you show me around. So that would be great.
I would love that. I would love that. Once you're here, you don't want to move back anymore.
I know, I've heard that actually. And you know what? Just going off piece a bit, my kids are 19 and 16 at the moment. So, I'm an empty nester very soon. So world is my option in terms of where I can
You know
actually
what?
go.
I'm envying. I'm kind of jealous because you already made it. My kids are between 10 and 14, and I just feel like the oldest one, in a puberty phase. It's quite an awful
Yes.
phase. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
but once she's through it, then I have 2 more to get into that phase.
Of course, of course. But let's talk about your journey because
Yeah.
obviously you're a founder, you're a CEO, you're a mother, wearing so many hats. Where did this all start for you then? If you were just to talk about the early years about your career journey for the audience.
I guess, that's a very good question. And I ask that myself every now and then, where did it actually all start? Because everything which is happening now was never planned and I never expected it to happen. I guess where it started was like finishing school, thinking, okay, I should go to university. And I wasn't sure about what to do after that. So let's start with business economics because it's a door opener for many things you can do. And it happened that I had a friend working in for one of the leading retail companies in Germany called Peek and Kloppenburg, which is like a large retail store chain. And he went through a trainee program and he said to me, that's actually, it's not even my job. You should do that. You would love that. So when I finished, I applied for this program and that's how it all started. That's when I ended up in retail almost 20 years ago, starting as a trainee, having the opportunity to look into different departments and ended up in fashion buying actually for many years. So then I moved from fashion buying to tech, which is kind of a 20-year story. I guess to cut it a little bit short, it was all about, working in retail and predominantly e-commerce, identifying a problem and then deciding to not wanting to live with that problem anymore, but solving the problem. So that's how I ended up then in tech.
That's amazing. And then you actually moved on to Zalando, which is now one of the biggest, retailers out there, but also a tech business. Do you remember the first Zalando ad on German television where it was the
Yes.
guy with the shoes? And
Yes.
I just thought, this is crazy. But honestly, if you think about fast forward now as to how that business has done so well and our tech leaders, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. When I joined Zalando, I had a headhunter saying I wouldn't move into the e-commerce space. That's not a safe thing. And I was thinking, come on, even back then in 2011, I think it was quite safe, but it was the early days of Zalando, which was epic, like kind of as people would describe it, it was like all over the place, an office with people playing table tennis and actually you like walked in, had no idea what is everyone doing. Lots of young people, extremely diverse and inclusive German people from different countries. Like you wouldn't even know if you can speak German or not.
Yeah.
Which was really like, it was just so fun. And then I think what really captured me was the energy of that, right? Back then, I think we were only 200 people when I joined. Almost unbelievable. We were all still sitting in one office. But everyone sitting in this room and having this amazing energy and just wanting to achieve the greatest story of life, and that what really brought people together and made it so exciting. That was one of my best experiences ever. And like really, it was crazy back then. We had growth rates of 100% year over year. Like you never get that again. But it was like really a massive shift from people moving from offline to online. And and like being literally always on the forefront of, inventing things, making experiences great. Like, if you remember your very first order you shopped online, you kind of didn't know if it will arrive in how many days, what the item will actually look like, because the picture quality was quite bad. You had actually no clue. It was kind of, like a guessing game. And nowadays it's such a smooth experience.
Yeah, definitely. And do you know what? I think what you've described is you a good decision to go into that business and go into tech, and that startup to you. It made sure that you were using your skill set of what you had learned, through your graduate program at Pekin
Yeah.
and Koppenberg, but also having that on your mind as to a changing business that was growing so quickly.
Mm. Yeah, that's right. And I think that's kind of that what I felt is the perfect environment for me. Like, when you actually have no clue what you're meant to do and you all gotta figure it out yourself. Like you just come with a really very much with a doer mentality and really like get shit done. There's no rule book for anything. Everything you do is first time that you're doing something, and it's just great fun. But it's like, I think it's very welcoming environment for people who really like to figure out things, who like working as a free spirit, more like, no one ever told you what to do. There was just like, we want to achieve this and you tell me how we get there. And that's what I really loved about it.
So let's now switch stages a bit. So can you share the exact moment when the idea for Huey struck you? What inspired you to turn this into reality?
Yeah, the exact moment is very present in my head still now. We had these monthly executive meetings at the Iconic here in Australia. And NPS was a metric we were looking at and very focused on, because we would always put the customer first. Now, in every monthly exec meeting, everyone could take a good guess why the score went up and down. And I was thinking to myself, come on, you gotta be kidding me. I can't sit in a multi-million-dollar company and have to guess what people think about my experience. Like, there is no contextual data in a way. Why is the score the way it is? Yeah. So some things might be a bit more obvious, like, during busy seasons, the score would go, like let's say the delivery experience score would go down because it took us longer to deliver and to dispatch and things like that. That's probably easier to relate. But it was just smoke and mirrors, this score, right? Like, how do you even unpeel what is behind that? And I was really thinking, this is shit. To be very frank, this is shit. This just can't be. Like, we deserve better insights, right? And then someone said, was it good old days when we all walked into a retail store and we knew exactly what the experience was like? If the staff was friendly, if the light was good, if the music was nice, if the smell was great, if people could find whatever they wanted to find. But no one knows anymore what is actually going on in an e-commerce store. And that was my light bulb moment. I was thinking that moment, all we would need is online mystery shoppers. The concept as such, having mystery shoppers going through retail stores, is very well known to retailers since ages, I want to say, right? That's the easiest form of direct feedback. Send someone into a store, tell me what you experienced, and then I'll have some facts and I can change things to the better. So I can improve the experience so that I can improve my revenue, right? And I'm thinking, too easy. We just set up a nationwide mystery shopper network. We go through the whole end-to-end experience. As of now, we capture about close to 200 data points. We send the mystery shopper through, we capture feedback, we aggregate the data presented to the retailers, and that's it. Now, fast forward a few years, that's where we are, kind of.
I mean, that's brilliant. And that sort of was the spark of you, having worked at the Iconic. You were frustrated with that, metric that was a key performance indicator in the business. And that's so interesting, where in your day-to-day, I can see it now in any role, or most women who I've spoken to, is they are frustrated with something in their business. But most of the time, you're on that treadmill of just doing your job every day, trying to achieve those targets, that you don't question the status quo. And you actually questioned it and said, okay, we can do something about it. Now,
Yeah.
founding a tech team, you must have started, it was you and your co-founder, involves assembling a talented team. What were the early days like? Like, just tell us how it was.
Super chaotic. Was just having this idea, right? And my experience, obviously, very much from the retail side. So I have no clue about tech. Still don't. Tech hates me. I always say that. I could walk past a toaster and it would fall apart. But I do understand the problem, right? That's where I came from. Hey, I'm saying here's a problem in this industry. Everyone tracks data and a P&L and KPIs, but no one tracks really customer experience. So that's an issue. This is a problem, and this is how I envision to solve it. And then Andy, the co-founder, who has obviously comes from a tech background, he was a smart mind saying, like, this is how we actually can solve it, right? Like, that's how we can provide the data. That's how we can that's how we make it measurable and trackable and benchmarkable. So that's kind of how it came about. Now, we had this idea in mind, but we still wouldn't have any idea of if this is actually even working, if someone would think that's valuable. Like, I would obviously say, yeah, that's a very common issue in e-commerce. But like, just because I say that doesn't mean anyone is willing to pay for that service, right? So I guess the early days were very much about, like, setting up the basics, very much rough basics. And then really building an MVP, finding someone who says, this is great. I'm willing to pay for this service if you can deliver this information. And that's kind of how it started. I think we found about 5, 6 retailers who said that's amazing, who were our first customers. And then that gave us about a year time to really start to build the actual product we have out now.
Yeah. And, finding the right people to join you on this journey must have been challenging as well. I mean, you've relocated all the way to Australia. Is there a very strong tech network there of people? Because everyone always assumes that if you want to do tech well, you have to be in Silicon Valley. You're completely on the other side of the world.
Well, I tell you, apparently Wollongong in Australia has a very good tech university, and that's where we found our first people. And he obviously has a great experience in tech. Nowadays, the people we have in our team, they all were selected by predominantly one reason, and that's all because they can relate to that vision, and they're all very ambitious. They're all keen to be part of an early stage startup, which per se is very risky. We could be gone in a couple of weeks' time, so you can't make big promises. To be fair, you can't pay great salaries, but they're all very driven people with the right mindset. I think that really connects them, and that was what we're really looking for. We always said, like, I don't care too much about the actual if we see the potential. What I really do care about is people who are in the right mindset to join a startup, to go to the most chaotic stages ever, to just get the big picture, like, not people working by book, right? People working to like reinvent themselves every day, and that's kind of how we got them together. Like, nowadays we do have, I think, out of, like, in our headquarters, we're about 15 people, and I think we're 13 different nationalities. Everyone works kind of remotely because we have people working anywhere across Australia. Like, we don't even have an office anymore. We don't dictate any times when they have to work. Of course, when you're customer facing, you have to be available during these hours, but anyone can work whenever they want. We don't give them hours. We don't give them dates. We don't ask them to say they will let us know if they're sick and not working, but we don't ask for any proof or anything like that. That sounds a bit loose and probably a different thing than what you would do if you had hundreds of people, but that's our mindset. We want to work like that because everyone of us, almost everyone in our company has little kids, and they're all like, I can only work if it's flexible for me. And that's the same for everyone. So it works really well. Like, the other co-founders, they have little kids, and their wives are working, and they have days like on Fridays when they say, I'm looking after the kids all day, I can't work, maybe a bit in the evening, maybe yes, maybe no, depends. And we like that mentality. We don't want to have ever the feeling, we want them to achieve things, but we're not telling them always how or how many hours it needs to take. If you're done after 3 days in a week with what you wanted to achieve, then good on you. And you will find they still work harder than anyone else.
Yeah, I think it's a big shift, isn't it? Because if you're an organization that is outcome focused, it's like we don't care how you get there, just get there at the end. And micromanaging isn't going to make it any easier. And I loved what you said about bring people into the business that are aligned with the mission and the vision, and that's what will get you through the challenges of being a startup and moving to a scale-up business. So let's talk about some obstacles and overcoming challenges. Can you share any specific obstacle you've encountered?
Yeah, I mean, there are obstacles on a daily basis. I know, I think the crazy thing is you have something in mind you want to build, right? And you build an MVP, and then down the line you figure out that it's kind of moving in a very different direction what you actually thought. Like when we built Humii, we built it predominantly for retailer. But like along the journey, we found out that we get a lot of requests from agencies, from data companies who are interested in our data, from tech providers and so on. So we you got to reinvent yourself all the time, and you have to, you can't sit still. It's like, don't be set in your mind of what you want it to be. You have to really go with the flow. And that's incredibly hard sometimes, because it can be also very disrupting for people. Like, one day you say green, and then the next day you say red, and then it's we're constantly moving. It's almost like a fluid story. And then, I mean, obstacles. On some days you have money, on other days you don't have any money, so you are really going to be creative and making it to the next round. And like, I mean, they're extremely tough times, and like, yeah, nothing ever remains the same. It's, I guess, even like cutting through the noise in the market is extremely hard. Like, there's so many solution providers out there, and people are getting slammed with emails and messages. Like, you can't even try that anymore. You have to find new ways on how people look at you as opposed to how you go out to people.
That's amazing. And you've just mentioned about as a business that is growing and constantly evolving, you're probably navigating industry shifts as well. I mean, e-commerce, tech has evolved so much over the past 2 decades. We're now in the AI, chat GPT, empowered phase. How do you adapt to changes in consumer behavior, technology, and market dynamics, just, in your current business as well?
I guess like that's a really good question, because I feel like we're very much at the forefront of that, because what we do is we measure any change in customer expectations. Like, there's some new invention coming to the market. Let's say, as an example, the company is called Refunded. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but they or loop returns and things like that. So they offer instant refund. Like, you return something, you get a refund within 60 seconds, right? All of a sudden we can see that the consumer behavior is changing. Like, if they get a refund now after a week, they would think like, that's too slow, I want to have the money straight away back. So whilst we like obviously measure the end-to-end customer experience along the line, we also measure any impact on any new tech stack or tech invention, whatever it is, and what does it mean for the end consumer. And I guess we're lucky enough that we work with so many retail partners. There's always someone having something new, and then is shouting out to us, hey, I'm going to implement this from next week on. Can you measure for us how it impacts our customer experience and so on? And I guess, as you would know, like with any new invention, with any new tech item in the market, the consumer behavior and the expectations are changing straight away. Like, 10 years ago, it was acceptable to wait 10 days for your online order. And nowadays, you're literally expected within 24 hours, if not faster. And that's obviously something we see very different in the UK versus Australia. So our UK online mystery shoppers have very different expectations to Australia. Here, it's still fine to ship within 5 days, not in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, so far you've just described a very colorful career that, didn't just happen overnight. This has taken 20 years of building and coming to that point. And I think really great for the audience to understand that you can start off in one direction and pivot and move across the world to do something
Mm.
different. So let's talk about that, moving from Germany to Australia. First of all, why? How did that happen? What was the moment where you said, I think I want to relocate in your journey?
The thing is, I never wanted to relocate. I got a call from a headhunter one day when I was at Zalando, and they asked me, hey, we are building up this startup in Australia, which was considered back then as a sister company to Zalando, and we need someone with your experience to help us building up the iconic. And I was saying 3 times no to them. They were very pissed. I was like, no, I'm happy here at Zalando. Like, why would I even move to Australia? Like, what's my job there? I don't know anyone there. And then it happened that I found out that my my ex-boyfriend was cheating on me. And I was like, it took probably a week. I was like, I was a mess for a week, as kind of drinking vodka out of the bottle. Literally like that. I was
I
like,
love
this is
that.
so
So my
shit.
style.
Very relatable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was an absolute mess. And then in week 2, I was like, I gotta pick myself up. This just can't, this can't happening to me. Like, I can't let myself go. So I'm like, I'm gonna call back this headhunter. And I did, and I said, okay, I'll take the job. I'm moving over. Well, I'm not taking the job. I still had to go through interviews, but yeah, then they invited me over for a week to go through, I think, 12 interviews in that week. And then at the end of the week, they made an offer. And 2-3 months later, I was living in Australia. That's
I
how it
mean,
happened. Like, I really didn't want to move there. I
thank
was
you,
just
ex-boyfriend.
really, yeah.
Yeah,
In case
that
he's
is
listening to
interesting.
this, thank you.
Yeah. Still,
That is great. And then I plan to stay 2-3 years. That's what I told my family. But then I met my husband, which I also didn't plan. And there was a friend on my Tinder profile. A friend from Germany came over. She went to my Tinder profile and she said, what was wrong with this guy you texted half a year ago? And I was like, I don't know, can't remember. And his last question was something like, are you free this Sunday to go on a walk with me and my dog? And she just took my phone and responded and said, half a year later, she said, you're lucky I'm free this Sunday. And that's how I met my husband, and that's how I gained 3 stepkids, So that's nothing was ever planned in my life.
yeah. There's something about serendipity, isn't it? Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith in your professional and your personal because if your growth is never linear, success, there are ups and downs, there are lots of what the fuck moments in your
Yeah,
life, versus
100%.
anything else. And you just have to sometimes take a chance, I think is the main lesson in that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I always think you gotta have these experiences. Like, people are sometimes a bit too afraid, but then I always tell myself, okay, what can happen in the worst case? But like, there's never a worst case, because you still gain experience, and just for the sake of the experience, it already makes it worth it, I think.
Yeah, it's always what's the worst that can happen, isn't it? Is
Yeah.
the mindset that we should, what's the worst that can happen? My mother always used to say, what's the worst that can happen? Life is for living. You're gonna retire when you die, so might as well take those chances now and make the most of it. So
That's
yeah,
so true.
yeah.
Yeah, so true.
Okay, so moving from Germany to Australia,
Oh, sorry,
that is
just
a
cutting
big
out.
cultural transition. What are the biggest culture nuances that have surprised you, and how has that impacted you from a professional perspective and also personal as well?
Cultural difference, my very first thought when I came here is, why does every dish has something to do with chicken and avocado? You can't find any dish in Australia without that. That was my first impression, but like, that's obviously has nothing to do with that. I guess But I really thought like the Australians are extremely friendly and helpful. Like you can stand on the street and look around and they would walk up and say, "Hey, are you looking for something? Can I help you find the way?" But then also like, what I knew from Germany is like when you line up in the morning to get a coffee, everyone is so grumpy. And if someone jumps the queue, people freak out. And in Australia, it's the opposite. Like everyone is a morning person. Like that, there was a big difference for me. Everyone gets up here at 5 o'clock and walks along the beach or whatever. But people are really friendly and they're a bit more chilled, like sometimes a little bit too chilled, I want to say. That's that. I feel like there's a bit more happiness in their lifestyle. And then also sometimes a bit more like, don't give too much fuck, just don't take things too serious. You still have a life. And that's very refreshing sometimes, I guess. Like, they really, I do think the work-life balance is very different here in Australia. Not too much if you're a founder of a startup, but in general, people are just very friendly in a good mood. Less direct, which is sometimes it's a bit hard for me initially because Germans are very straight, and I'm probably very, very direct German, and that's what I expect other people to be with me as well. Australians are probably a bit different, but in general, I feel like there's a lot of happiness and positivity here.
I guess those are things that you can, you've described what your company culture is, and you've mixed, isn't it, that both, isn't it, where in terms of the vision for the business and what you're doing, it's very clear, very, very aligned. That's
Yeah.
probably the German side of you. But on the other hand, you're embracing the culture nuances of flexibility and family and just trying to be a bit more high energy and embracing, being in that culture environment, I think sort of shining through.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So talk to me about self-care. Obviously you're a founder, a CEO running a successful business, but also a stepmom. How do you take care of yourself and recharge to maintain focus for you?
I guess I really like kind of being busy, and I love, doing tons of things. That doesn't bother me, but I think the best way for me to get energy is I kick off the day with a gym session. I usually get up at 5:25. That's when my alarm rings, and then I go to the gym session. That's usually when everyone is still in bed, so I'll be back at just before 7 when everyone gets up. That really helps me to get the energy for the day. I feel like the days I'm starting with the gym are like so much better than the days I miss it. And to be fair, every now and then I have a few drinks and I might say like I'm not going tomorrow morning. That's something I really like. And then I'm a very extrovert person. I in general get my energy out of being around people, being like doing stuff with the kids, and everything is always loud in my household and a bit crazy. I guess that really being around friends and family, that's for me very important, because also you gotta shut down with work sometimes. Like you have to hang out with people who have no context of not let's say no deep context of what you're doing, and like not asking always about work. Like it's good to shift your mind because you spend so much time with your team and with the co-founders. Like you got to find other people to talk about something completely different, shut off your phone. And then I guess if I have like a bit more quiet moments to recharge, I really like cooking. I wouldn't say I'm the best cook, but I love spending time watching, Jamie Oliver videos and just go through step by step through the process. And I find that really, that's kind of my form of meditation, I guess, cooking.
Yeah, and you've struck a chord just about my circle of friends are completely different in terms of industry and
Yeah.
sector and what they do. And I love that because you can really then switch off and just lean into those things as
Yeah.
well. Sport, I mean, your alarm goes off at 5:25. My internal clock goes up at 5 a.m. And I
Yeah.
just need to get out, get to the gym, get started, and
Yeah.
just recently got into CrossFit as well, which has been a big game changer for
Yeah.
me. So, but it
And I
allows
saw
you
you
just
a
to
judge of
focus.
the High Rocks Challenge, are you?
Yes, actually by accident, someone said there's a high rocks going on and they're looking for some volunteers. We're competing. Do you want to come and have a look? And I was like, oh, and I just heard everyone speaking German around as well. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. Germans are here in the UK.
Yeah.
What's this about? But it's just like it's it's something that you just get hooked on. Has Higher Ups come to Australia yet, or is it
Yes,
is it?
and I was considering taking part and I wasn't really sure about it, but I was like really interested to have a chat about that with you because I was like, I really admire that. And like, but the gym I go to is like very much, we call it refit or CrossFit, but it's kind of the same. And we have lots of people at our gym competing there. And I was like, I was really close. I usually take part in a annual challenge at our gym, which is like called Warrior Challenge, but I really want to do that. Like I was just kind of sussing out, like, there's always a little bit doubt. Will I look ridiculous next to people who are like super fit? But I think you just got to do things, right? Even like, as
And
I said
you
earlier,
already
it's
have the
worth the experience,
foundation.
right?
Yeah, you have the foundation already with all the little challenges you've been doing at the gym. And honestly, it is really called the sports for everyone. I mean, um, Christian, who owns the business, probably thinks I'm not even getting paid for talking about
Yeah.
how great it is. But really, honestly, everyone is amazing. It's a great environment. It's just you're challenging yourself. Yes, there's super fit people on the side, but there's also people who are doing it for the first time or in honor of their parent or because it's for someone has passed away and they're doing it
Mhm.
for them. It's just a really great go for it, is what I would
So did
say.
you participate as well yourself?
Yeah, I've done it twice. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, ooh, I'm like, that's so good. Like, okay, I'm gonna do that now. Like, I think you gave me confidence. I really want to do that.
Exactly. Go for it. Like you said, what's the worst that can happen, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. And it's just worth the experience. Even like you can't fail. If you're part of it, you've already, you know, done something good.
Yeah. So just hearing your conversation about being a leader, building a business, working for different brands, startup, scale up, it feels like there's a lot of building of relations and networking and also meaningful connections are really important. Do you want to
Mm.
talk to me about what networking strategies have worked for you and how have you built authentic relationships within your industry and sector?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's a very good point. I guess, I mean, even moving through so many different roles and countries and companies gives you a good opportunity, to connect with various people. And I think I'll keep that up a lot because I'm someone who constantly asks for feedback in terms of like, hey, we have an idea with Humii. Before we launch anything, we kind of go out to all our network, to end users of the products, to some general smart people in the industry, could be various skill set, various jobs, to just kind of get feedback. And I feel like for us, that's a huge part of networking in a way, because you don't see the forest for the trees sometimes if you're sitting in your company, and we do have external advisors who help us a lot. That's for me, like the feedback part from my network is extremely important, and I love brutally honest feedback. So, I was just talking to someone very smart, like I'm connected with since years in the industry, and he said, look, this and this and this is really shit what you're doing, and I like to hear that, right? Someone's got to
Nice.
say that. Otherwise, you can't improve. And I guess, like, yeah, that's also a mentality we do have in our startup, that we're very open with feedback internally, but also externally. That's the only way you can grow, right? And I guess, yeah, I stayed close with lots of people, like with lots of really mentors in the industry, like my old boss at the Iconic and my very first boss back in Germany. Like, there's still people I would be connected to and ask for feedback.
And that's really interesting because I guess sometimes there's this assumption, whether it's on social media or TikTok, that when you become this leader or founder or CEO, that you know everything. You're a human being at the end of the day, isn't it? You
Yeah.
still need touch points and people who could call you out on your bullshit, basically,
Yeah.
and just empower you as well. You need to be able to pick up the phone to someone and say, what do you think? And it helps you grow as well as an individual.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's something I felt always really strong about, like giving feedback and receiving feedback. That's the only way, like how you can improve as a person in your company and so on. Like what we built with Humii is very much built on demand. Like if people give us feedback, look, there's no demand for this, then we don't build it, right? So everything we do is based on our customers and on the industry feedback.
Yeah. Now, we know that women empowerment is a very big thing across whatever sector, and especially in tech and retail. I mean, you've started a business, and we know that the statistics are telling us that 1% of all funding goes to women.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about you breaking barriers. As a woman in tech, in leadership, what advice would you give to other women we are working in a male dominated field in general? What tips would you give just based on your journey and the lessons that you've learned so far?
I guess for me, it was always, I never really thought about the fact, oh, I'm a minority here, I'm the only woman. I don't think that way. For me, I never think specifically about genders in general. I just think about people, if that makes sense. However, the industry is constantly reminding me, right? Like I got the question the other day, how does it feel to be a female founder? And I was like a bit shocked, and I was saying, well, what do you mean? Do you think I feel anyhow different than a male founder? Like that's what really bothers me. And I think I rubbed that in. Like I was literally saying, like, you gotta be kidding me. Why would you even ask me such a question, right? And that's what I guess needs to stop. And it really annoys me if people ask me like that. If anything, I would give the advice to everyone, like just go in with open mind. Don't think about gender, and don't, like, if we start thinking like, oh, I might get treated differently because I'm a woman in tech, then possibly it will happen, right? Like just be strong about yourself. You're not your gender in a way, right? Like you're the sum out of your character, out of your skills, out of your personality, and what you can bring to the table, and there's zero difference, right? And like back to your point, with the founders, the investors we've just raised money with, they've been actually really, really conscious. For them, it was super important that there's a female in the founder team. Actively, I mean, first and foremost, they support great ideas and great potential, but they're actively supporting, mixed teams.
And you're so right. I guess it stops you if you go with an open mind, your character, your skill set, your skills, then it takes away imposter syndrome. It takes away all these negative connotations, thoughts that you may have about yourself as an individual. So probably a very good tip
You just
for
gotta
women
make
out there.
yourself, like, bring yourself down if you think about it. Like, I mean, you get hit by reality anyway. It's like if I go to tech events, or I was like at a founders breakfast the other day and there were 29 men and I was the only woman. So that's a sweet little reminder of what kind of world we live in. But yeah, I refuse to even think about it. Like,
Yeah, that's really interesting. Let's talk about you and balancing vision and flexibility. How do you balance staying true to your vision for your business, but also remaining, open to pivots and adjustments that may come along the way? Because it's been a long journey for you and your business, and seeing how far it's come.
it's not for the faint-hearted. That's what I always say, being in a startup is not for the faint-hearted. I think, like, I just really think the co-founders and me, we have really like a challenging mentality. Like sometimes we look at each other and say, like, come on, this is shit, what were you doing? Or, sometimes you get stuck in your way and you can't get any further. And we just had that the other day and we totally got stuck, right? And then we're saying, look, we got stuck at this point now for ages. That's just to prove that we're doing something wrong here. We have to pivot again. When I say that, I think about the Friends scene with the sofa and Ross and Rachel pivot. But it is totally right. Like you gotta be true and honest with yourself, and you can't, like, you can't run after every little opportunity. I think two things which is the most important for us, focus, right? do what you can do with your given capacity. Like, you can't run after every shining star, and there are tons of opportunities coming across. You got to remain focused, because if not, if you get distracted, it just makes your work so bad for the bit you can do. And then the other thing is like, challenge yourself, constantly challenge. And as I said, that probably goes back to the feedback. You need to get a lot of feedback along the way. You need to get a lot of brutal feedback. Like, I spend more time with a customer who probably dropped off and said, I don't need your service anymore, than probably someone who keeps on staying on, because I need to know why did we not add any value anymore to that. That's so important for us, and that helps us then to pivot.
Yeah, that's a very good tip, actually. So staying in touch with the customer you lost to understand what could we do better, versus just saying, okay, we've lost you, we're now going to recruit another new customer. And that's a principle you can apply across any sector, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, 100%. Like, same as like, if something didn't work out, like, spend really time and then being reflective of why things didn't work out, right? And it's not like about blaming yourself or anything, like it's learning from things. And we always say there's so many million mistakes we can make in the startup, but one thing we don't want to do is making the same mistake twice. I don't mind about the amount of mistakes. Go ahead, do hundreds, do thousands, but it's stupid if you do the same mistake twice. So that's my golden rule.
It's just your motto for life, isn't it? Whether it's personal, professional.
Yeah.
Learn from the mistake the first time.
Yeah, and like, it's just, and if that ever happens, it happens once to me, and I was thinking to myself, Christ's sake, I've done that before. How can this happen? And I get so angry with myself that I've done it again. I was like, this will never ever happen again.
Wise words. So circling back, we've talked about your journey and your, whether it's professional or personal. It feels like you've also grown as an individual through all these various careers that you've had across the way. Is that fair to say that your growth has been impacted as an individual as well?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like, I look at myself and think, how the hell did I end up here? But it's like, it all makes sense after a couple of years, because it's not anymore like about the actual things you're doing. It's more about, what your personality's like, what kind of environment is enabling and empowering for you, and things like that. So I guess, like, of course, very early days in your career journey, you stick to, what we've just learned, but like, it becomes more bigger picture the further, you get, and like, you just figure out, I look more at like, what's the environment I want to work in, right? And then these kind of things, and I will figure out the rest somehow. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't, but it's an extremely growth journey. And like, especially if you don't really plan things, you just go with the flow and end up here and there and doing this and this. Like, but how did I end up in tech? Yeah, I have nothing to do with tech. It just happens that tech solves the problem I've experienced, but it's a great growth journey. And I guess, like, being a startup founder is very humbling experience. It's good for the ego, it's really good to go through a couple of hard years.
And also, you mentioned, tech is really just about problem solving. So if you're able to solve a problem, then there is a tech business there to be had, ultimately, I believe, as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk about Trailblazer tips. So what are your tips for aspiring women, entrepreneurs in business, things that you wish someone would have told you all those back that could shape the direction for the audience?
I guess for me, one of the most important things in life was, don't get stuck in a situation you're not happy in. Like, don't stick to a job you're not happy in because someone says, oh yeah, because of your CV, you shouldn't stay 2 years or whatever. One thing you can't get back is time. Yeah, and it's just wasted time, because unhappiness will eat you up. It's rather leave a job 3 times in a row than stick to something which makes you so unhappy as a person. And if you're unhappy, obviously that reflects on everyone else and your family and friends. Never do that. And then I guess what really helps me is, like we spoke about, what can happen in the worst case. What I really always tell myself, like, I had this situation, in a startup, you think every couple of months, that's it, we're going to go broke. That's it, we're going to close doors tomorrow. And I was thinking initially to myself, oh my God, it's going to be so embarrassing. And then one day I was sitting down and thought to myself, I need to stop thinking that. There's nothing embarrassing about it. What I've done is I've gave something a leap. I've done something, I took a leap, believed in something, and I gave it a go. That per se is something amazing if people do that, and no one, if it works out, great. I mean, the statistics technically are against me, but if it doesn't work out, then I should not feel embarrassed for everything and go back to what in the worst case can happen. You always gain great experiences from these things, and you take these experiences for life. And as we said earlier, it's a growth journey of yourself as a person. So like, don't think like it's gonna be embarrassing. People will look at me. What will they think? No one gives a shit, right? And like, no one will care about it in 2 years anymore. Honestly, just be free, like a little bit. And it's obviously easier said as done sometimes, because you also still have some financial commitments, and you can't just like, oh well, fuck it, I'll I'll travel the world for a year. But what I mean is like, don't be afraid of moving into situations which you probably don't feel comfortable with. You also will figure out you don't need to know everything. You will learn things quite quickly. The only thing you need to know is being able to challenge situations and outcomes. So and that's what it is probably with me. Like, I don't have any clue about tech, but I'm still able to challenge things, and that's all you need to know. You take it from there. Life only happens once, and take opportunities, because the experiences will bring you so much more in life than missed opportunities.
Well said. And honestly, what a great way to end the podcast for our audience with you only live once, and get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's right.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing your journey. I'm confident that it will inspire someone out there. It's definitely inspired me. I've been, taking some notes, saying I need to reflect on some decisions, and also learn to take a few more leaps as well, because
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. And I'm sure your journey will inspire someone out there.
Thank you so much for having me, Antola. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I will let you know how I go with the Hyrox challenge.
I'm going to hold you to that. Thank
Yes,
you.
100%. Thank you so much for having me. Bye.